name is Asha Valliere, and I am a graduate student, counseling student at the University of Mary. And today I am presenting my school counseling portfolio for the Graduate Student Assessment HUM 799 course. A brief overview of what I'll be presenting on today, starting with the mission and values, some reflection on the feedback I've received over my time in the program, multicultural awareness, my theoretical orientation, my personal leadership and how I've grown in that area, also my professional ethics, and then also a reflection on my overall experience at my time at the University of Mary and in the counseling program. So, starting off with the mission and values of the University of Mary, with the mission, I really aligned with the focus of service that is just the overall idea of the mission. And I think that's something I've really grown in this year and really started to understand through practicum and internship is focusing on people and being there as a counselor and how we service them through our work. Also, the focus of the needs of people. As a school counselor, we really quickly learn what the needs of our students are, whether it be teachers or observations or students coming to us themselves. The needs are always there and very apparent. And so through our service, we're meeting the needs of our students. And I think that is just something that really spoke to me through the University of Mary's mission statement and that I see in my work every day as a school counselor. With the Benedictine values, again, service, it really just stuck out to me, especially as a counselor. And we are being servant leaders and we are there for our students and providing not only an actual service for them, but we have a deeper meaning through that and with God and with Jesus, and we are just there to be his disciples and service our students, meeting the needs of them and being there no matter who they are, where they come from, what their background is. We are there for our students. Which leads to my second point of advocating and serving for all students. It does not matter what their family life is like, what their status is. We are there to advocate and support them, no matter what side of the story they're coming to us from. Also, moderation is a huge one, I think, for counselors in general, is we have to be paying attention to that self-care and we have to find that balance so that we are not burning ourselves out. And I think that's something our professors have preached to us throughout the entire program, as well as cohorts above us, is just that self-care. And I think in the beginning, it seemed kind of like a warning or, just something to keep in the back of your mind. But as you get into the work and as you're doing the real things, you realize, how your energy is taken away or maybe where it is thriving a little bit more in the work you're doing, but really coming back to that self-care piece and knowing what is filling your cup and reminding yourself to fill your cup so that you can be there for your students and that we're there so that we can provide that service and be there and advocate for them. I have received so much great feedback from my peers, my professors, my supervisors, just everyone in the program, and it's been so helpful for me to know things that are coming a little bit easier to me versus things that I know I'm struggling with or not understanding completely and need some more work on, but also getting that different perspective from somebody else who has had the chance to observe me and work with me. It's just so helpful because not only am I getting the things to work on, but they're giving me feedback on how to improve and what to do differently or things to try based on what they have really liked or what they think would fit my style. And I think that's been super helpful in my work and my internship, especially this year. When I was in practicum, my site supervisor had the opportunity to observe me in a classroom during a classroom lesson, and it was with a huge group of kindergartners, and that was my toughest class by far, just with the behaviors. And so classroom management was something that she gave me a lot of great feedback on, and kind of some of those attention grabbers and transitions and what to do if a student finishes an activity early, things like that. So we can really keep moving and that, especially with those younger students, that they're not just given roam of the classroom and that I'm giving them practical things and, what to do next or where to go and just having those routines set for them to kind of have better control of the classroom. The second thing was during an individual live supervision, and that was the appropriate timing for the age of this student. And so I had been working with a preschooler at that time, and so she had recommended for me to cut back on the time that I was seeing that student to maybe around 10 to 15 minutes so that I could keep her attention longer and also be more um, meaningful and intentional with that time I do have her rather than finding filler things or letting her take, I don't want to say control, but just kind of that attention span, especially for those younger students. But rather than having her, do something that's not as intentional, really focusing on the short amount of time so that I can also get her back to class so that she's not missing any core instruction as well. My counseling skills class and just overall across the program has been something that I have really enjoyed learning more on. And I think it really was surprising to me too how much I didn't expect to be a part of counseling. Um, and that I really enjoyed figuring it out and getting to, make mistakes and figure it out and have the support of my peers and my professors. And it was just such a big blessing for me. Reflection of feeling and reflection of meaning were something that were two skills that were really difficult for me right away in that counseling skills class because I think I kind of aligned with my peers in some of it. I just wanted to fix everyone and I wanted to offer them um, solutions and I wanted to just jump the gun and get there. And I was like, oh, we could do this. Let's do this. Let's do this rather than like pausing and taking that time to really validate them and see them with that feeling and meaning. I think I did really well with being empathetic and understanding them, but that reflection piece I really was missing in the beginning that I think I have really um, spent some time on learning and being intentional with so that I could improve on that. The second skill that's been difficult for me is confrontation. I am not a confrontational person at all. And so doing this with a client and also with a student, especially younger students who come from a lot of trauma, was really difficult for me. But I know it's necessary and very important in counseling. Um, and so I think seeing that play out in real life has been super important for me. I've gotten the chance to observe other counselors this year, and so seeing how they integrate it has been super helpful in knowing that not every that students aren't going to have a super huge reaction to confrontation, especially small ones where I'm saying, you know, you're telling me this, but this is what you're doing. Are we able to like see how that's different or misaligned, things like that. And so it's not going to be a huge argument every time. It can be small, it can be subtle, but it's intentional. And so that is something that I've really been working on this year to make more progress with my students. Overall, my assignments at the University of Mary, I've gotten a lot of positive feedback on from my professors, which I'm very grateful for. And I've spent a lot of time on all those assignments. So I'm grateful that my grades have reflected all of the hard work. And the main things that I have gotten points off or different feedback for is my formatting for APA 7. I think that is something I will always need to look back on my orange book for and just do some extra double checking to make sure that my formatting is correct. especially with different editions coming out in the coming years, just double checking that everything is correct before submitting. Also, with the ASCA templates, the data collection was something that I struggled with. I didn't 100% understand where everything went or the verbiage on certain things. And so Dr. Gaynor was really helpful with explaining that to me and helping me understand numbers and percentages and things like that. So that was very helpful. And I think something very practical for my work in school counseling. My personal growth this year has been really, really great. And I think I've started to see it as well. I think outsiders have seen it, but I think this is the time, this is a semester where I've really seen it in myself, which has just been really great and a very positive experience for me. The first is my confidence. I think I am looking back from a year ago. I think I'm a totally different person. I'm so much more confident in what I'm doing in my work in schools. And I think that obviously comes from a lot of great feedback from everybody in my life and everyone who supported me. And also, I always am going back to advocating for my students and what is best for my students. And if that's me going out on a limb or speaking up extra in a meeting, I'm okay with that because it's for my students. And I've just kind of had to compartmentalize. It's not about me in this moment, it's about my students. And I have to be their voice at the table that they aren't able to sit at. And so that's just really helped me with my confidence and speaking out a lot more when it matters and being more intentional with that. I have also done a lot of work and a lot of preparation to setting routines and expectations with my students as a part of that classroom management piece. I've done a lot to make sure that my lessons are following a set like schedule. Obviously, there's some variation depending on the content area we're talking about or the activities I have planned, but I try to keep it as similar and coherent as possible, especially for my younger students, so that they know what to expect and they know what our routines are. So it's not a lot of asking, what are we doing? What are we doing? Are we going to do this today? And so they know I'm going to give them the lowdown right when we start. They know when it's time to be quiet. They know when we get to turn and talk. They know when they get to have um, movement time and things like that in the classroom, which has been really helpful. I have done my practicum and internship on at a school, two schools on the Standing Rock Indian Reservation in on the North Dakota side. Obviously, the reservation extends well into South Dakota, and this has just been the biggest eye opener for me when it comes to multicultural considerations. And I had grown up close to another reservation, but it was smaller and also had a lot more access to different resources compared to Standing Rock. And so this was just really eye-opening for me to understand the community and where the students are coming from, and the experiences that they have and they endure every day is just really eye-opening for me. And obviously, the multicultural class with Dr. Garza Friday was so great for me, and getting to read a lot of those books and hearing different perspectives and just the overall concepts that we went through. I think it was easy to get a lot of good feedback and different strategies that we can use for multiple cultures and just staying curious with our students, and not assuming. And the biggest takeaway from that class that I have is to not make a student or a client or any human our learning opportunity. Obviously, we want to think about what's important to them and their values and their culture. However, it's not their job to teach us their culture. And I think that's something that I've taken a step back and really been cognizant of my words and what I say to students, because I am so curious and I would love to learn everything that they have and what they do in their culture and their language and drumming or beating or sewing and all the things. And I have just really been intentional about letting that come out naturally and what they feel like sharing versus me asking 100 different questions that run through my brain sometimes. And so just letting them share what they want to as it comes up in conversations rather than seeking them out and asking questions. And being curious and asking those questions when the time is right and when it makes sense. I have also had some really great cultural experiences with my students, and this was something that I really wanted to do to support them outside of school and to make sure that they know, yes, I'm here for you as a school counselor, but it goes beyond that. I wanted them to see me as a human being and not just, somebody in their school building. And so the midwinter powwow is held in Bismarck every year, and I got to go not this past January, but last January, and I got to see a couple of my kids dance in the powwow and a bunch of my students in the crowd cheering on relatives. And so it was just really great for them to, walk past me and be really excited to see me and meet some parents, meet some grandparents, and just have that connection outside of the school building and get to experience the full powwow. The second experience I had was Buffalo Days, and this was an event that was part of the community where they um, Woju, a community center in Cannonball, had killed a buffalo, dried it out, and then students and different community members got to participate in processing the meat, drying out the hide, and students and kids and families, everybody just got to see the whole process of how you use every piece of the buffalo, how nothing goes to waste. And it was just such an incredible experience for me to see how involved the students were. Like everybody wanted to be a part of it, everybody wanted to be doing something. It was hard for them to take turns because they were so excited. And it was just really, really cool for me to get to witness that and see how everything worked because it was very new to me. But nobody, hesitated to jump in or invite me or do anything. And so I was really excited to get to witness that for my students and with them as well. My theoretical orientation through this program has remained the solution-focused brief therapy. Um, this one really jumped out to me right away in the program because it aligned with school counseling so much and how friendly it was for the work that we do. Um, CBT is another one that I really liked. However, I think parts of it can be used for school counseling. Some of those longer term things aren't as easy for school counselors, which is why I mostly focused on solution focused. But I do like elements of CBT for school counselors as well. I plan to work in rural North Dakota as a school counselor, and I also have worked in title schools so far. I think this has been a really great area for me and working with students who have really high needs. That is something that I've always wanted to do, and that's a really big benefit for me working with Korea is because I've never had a huge preference on the school that I'm going into. And so getting told, this school is really high need, this is who needs a school counselor, and I just get to go and I get to do the work. And so that's been something I really, really enjoyed. And I think that's something I want to continue doing is I always want to serve the students and the school that are the most in need. And I know every school, every student deserves and needs a school counselor. And some of these schools are having more immediate needs than others. And so I think these title schools in the rural areas have been really great for me to work in so far. The evidence-based practices that I really liked are first the miracle question. If you went to sleep tonight and you woke up in the morning and everything was fixed, everything was better, what would you notice first? I think that has really made my students pause and think and do a lot of critical thinking that they aren't typically challenged with at times in the classroom. And so this has been a really interesting thing for me to hear their responses. And I've really liked it because it's sometimes hard to get them to open up or see positives. And so this, magical question, miracle question can kind of get them to be more positive and be like, well, this is the first thing I would notice, or you know, I would be hanging out with these friends again. And it's like, okay, that kind of gives us it gives us a great starting point and where to go um, from there. I also really liked scaling questions so far. And also some of the verbiage that Dr. Garza Friday has given us too of like, okay, if you're at a 5, what's keeping you at a 5 and not a 4? So we can recognize some of those strengths and resources that are keeping them above water sometimes. With this picture, if they are, in that 4, 5, 6 range, pretty much okay. How are we staying away from that red? How can we get to the green so that we are, um, recognizing some of that data of like, okay, today I'm at a 5, maybe the next day they're at an 8. Okay, and then the next day maybe I drop down to a 3. So kind of keeping track of those things and just figuring out where they're going, where they could be going, and those strengths and resources. Personal leadership has been something that I've had to put a lot of intentional time into. I don't know that I would describe myself as a natural leader, but I think it is something that I'm very capable of doing with the right mindset and right intentions behind it. I have been a member of the NDCA and ASCA since I have started in the program. Those both have given me a lot of great resources, a lot of great access to different opportunities and trainings. So I've been really grateful for those two memberships that I'll be continuing well after I graduate from the University of Mary. For training and advocacy, I am about to start the Prepare training, which is a crisis response program that my entire CREA team will be doing, and it'll kind of help us understand the process that our administrators are going through and some of our leaders, what they do at the top level, and how we can best support them with as the boots on the ground and kind of where we want to be focusing our efforts. And so I'm excited to get to join in on that training because it's a program that um, CREA uses when we're responding to different crises in our area. And so I think it would be really beneficial for me to have that training so I know what everybody else um, is going to be doing. And I'm not just the sole counselor, I'm working together with everybody around me. Student representation has been a huge one. I think, again, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of times our students don't have a place or a seat at the table when we are having different conversations about them, whether it's formal or informal. And so I have really taken a big stride this year to be that representation for them, to be that voice for them. I'm very lucky to have a smaller student population, so I know most of my students very well, and I know their preferences. I know a lot of times what they may, not to put words in their mouth, but where they're coming from in a lot of different situations. And so knowing that, I get to advocate for them better at those meetings and at those tables. I also have done a lot of great trauma training, as well with the crisis counseling class and just some great different opportunities that I've had is my awareness to trauma, how the brain works, and helping other teachers understand that and where they can go from there and how to use it in their classrooms beyond just knowing that the brain is affected, but practices and interventions that they can be using that are trauma informed. My servant leadership skills have also really been something I've focused on this year. And I think the long-term investment has been really great for me at this school because I have been there for almost 2 years now, and I'm planning to be there for a third. And so with that mindset, knowing I'm going to be in the school again, focusing on some things that are not just in the here and now, but that will go beyond this school year. And hopefully, if I ever do transfer schools, that can be continued on by somebody else in the school. Um, a lot of my focus has been with different careers or different protocols that the school hasn't had before. And so getting those and forwarding them to administration, having conversations with them about it so that I'm not just there for the day. I'm investing into this school and into these students and their future. That kind of goes along with the whole school approach is I'm seeing these kids pre-K through 12. And so focusing on the things that I'm noticing in the older students and being proactive with the younger students and being intentional about the reactive stuff we're planning at the high school to catch those students before they are going into um, their futures outside of school. For my professional ethics, the ASCA Code of Ethics is the one that I will be following along with their decision-making model, um, and always prioritizing students and their safety. That is always number one to me. And so that model makes it very clear on not always what to do, but the steps to make a good decision, again, for those students and for their safety. Um, for my own personal growth, I have been focusing on not taking things personally. I think when students would be frustrated with me or have negative reactions, especially with different escalated behaviors, I would take that really personally and question the relationship that I had built with that student when I just need to separate myself and understand that they are so escalated, they aren't thinking clearly, and it's not about me in that moment, it is about them. And I've mentioned this a lot so far in this presentation, but again, being the voice for those who don't have one, those students who aren't having a seat at the table. Overall, my experience at the University of Mary has been so amazing and I really enjoyed it. The biggest barrier for me, especially in the beginning, was that imposter syndrome. And that's something I've really overcame, especially with my confidence growing. My biggest highlight was residency, getting to see my professors and my cohort and working on those skills face to face was really a meaningful time for me. My biggest accomplishment is hearing my students use the skills that I've taught them, specifically the apologizing, because they are very quick to retaliate. So when I hear a student using all the steps of an apology, I just like made my day, and it's so exciting to see them actually using what I'm teaching them. Self-care has been another thing for me with creating the balance. It's not something that you find, it's something that you create and that you have to do with moderation. My personal development, again, just growing in that confidence and being who I am and accepting my style and really growing in who I am. Next for me, after graduation, I will be again in Cannonball with Kriya. And my goal is to have an advisory council going next year as well as a career fair. I also would love to present at conference eventually. Um, And just for the University of Mary, I am so grateful for the support and the experience that they have all provided me, all my professors, the courses. Everything has been so intentional, and I have just loved every minute of it. And I am gonna be a little lost after graduation, and I'm not sure what that time will look like, but I'm really grateful for ASCA and NDCA for their support that I will have from them. So it's not like I'm going to be alone on an island. I'll still have my cohort, my professors, and those memberships to fall back on. So thank you so much for listening. I appreciate your time and all you have done for me as a school counseling student in my program. And all the advice and the great support and experiences that you have helped to provide me. So, thank you for listening.